Just to give you an indication where we're headed with our discussion so far, especially with the IBC, where the National Assembly right now is on a tearing rush to make sure that IBC commissioners are hired. That is the letters that we are having right now with the IBC Amendment Bill. Also, we have a Member of Parliament from Thika. This is Alice Nganga, who is coming up with a legislation to make sure that most of the constituencies that will be affected with the boundaries review are retained. So this is really coming up late in the day. It should have been done much earlier. We're waking up to the realization that some of them will be losing their constituencies, or as it is right now. And we talk about the 8 bills that the NADCO report also has now put on the floor of the House to be legislated. Where are we headed? But before we continue apace with that conversation, I also look at this. Yeah, we have cost of living, devolved opposition officials, gender rule. These are some of the issues that are really affecting the country right now. And the National Dialogue Committee seem to have been broaching these issues either way. So we are at the top there of the Njenga, as you can see, with the IBC. That is a critical one right now, as far as the time lapse is concerned. If not addressed in due course, we might be plunging ourselves into a constitutional crisis. Right, Mr. Ruku, before I took a short break, I was on you, and you wanted to comment also on the issue of the doctors you've commented on, but you wanted to comment on the issue also of the amount that MPs are seeking to raise on the budget allocation, the 2 billion shillings.
Yes, I think...
or it's been exhausted.
The 2 billion cash sharing going to Parliamentary Service Commission is not misplaced at all, because the costs involved in running the institution, the Parliament as an institution, is quite huge budget. We have Parliament, which is one of the arm of government. We have also judiciary and the executive. All these arms of government must be properly resourced for them to be able to carry out their mandate properly. And the mandate of Parliament is extremely important to the Kenyans, because if we don't do our functions properly, many things will go wrong, because everything is oversighted. The running of government, the running of judiciary, the budgeting processes is oversighted and done by Parliament. At the moment, you realize, I witnessed where committees were barred from doing their work because the clerk of the National Assembly and the Speaker will say, guys, we don't have the budget. At the moment, we can't be able to move, we can't be able to do meetings, committee meetings, to look at different departmental registrations which are coming to different committees, because our budget is limited.
Which departmental... Which departmental, what did you call it?
Departmental committees.
Yes.
We have many departmental committees within the Parliament.
No, you said there's something coming up to the departmental committees.
For instance, I sit in the committee. I sit in the committee of delegation and registration, where all the regulations from whichever ministry or whichever government body must come to that committee and must be ratified. We have to go through each and every section of these regulations. For instance, last week we were looking at the regulations on social health act. And there are 3 of them. There are 3 regulations, including even tribunal on health issues. So we look at every section. Of course, we have a team of legal counsels which support the committee. We go through. So if we are not able to look for a venue where you can be able to go and sit and do that, who will pay that venue? It's Parliamentary Service Commission to pay. The time we are there, of course, we need to take your tea and lunch. So all these resources, money will go to supporting these activities of Parliament.
But Mr. Ruku, with all due respect, these are not new things that we're hearing of, about you, Dr. Nyikal, sitting in your health committee and being served with tea And also you are seeking for a venue, you go to Mombasa. It doesn't happen, every other time. Unless now you're going to come up now with a report that is very crucial, that is needed, is when now you can actually go to these particular hotels. So what you're telling me, Mr. Ruku, that is your normal,
No.
job description. You as a legislator, when you sit in these committees, these other miscellaneous, I think interest.
Let me tell you.
Expenditure are there, but they cannot really account to 2 billion shillings that you want to.
Let me tell you. Before I became a member of parliament, I was also of the same thinking that very little of things happen in parliament. But if we have a serious factory of things which are of national importance, is the Parliament of the Republic of Kenya. I used to think that...
But no one is disputing that.
I used to think,
you as an economist, if you may itemize for me why this 2 billion shillings should be warranted, then I'll be happy, so that at least I know, looking at my invoice, this is going to this particular expenditure.
I'll be very happy if you're asking us, why is it that the National Treasury has allocated itself about 160-something billion Kenya shilling for running of the ministry, and we have not, there is no project which are implemented by the National Treasury in our villages, but there's a huge budget allocated in the National Treasury, much bigger than some other ministries, some other sections. I think I will be more happy to discuss such kind of a...
I'll be happy myself to discuss this because...
Two things that I can bring in.
Have you finished?
Yeah. I just wanted to actually support this. Two things that you can bring in. You know what's happening, I've seen in the past 2 parliaments, when you have a lot of changes, a lot of reforms, you actually have a lot of laws being changed, a lot of laws being looked at, a lot of like regulations. Before, regulations were basically done by ministers and they gazetted them. Now every regulation must come to the Committee of Delegated Legislation. Everyone. No minister can now go and gazette a regulation. If you look at the laws in the acts in the past, they actually say the minister will. Even it still says, but if the minister does that, then it must go there. So that's a new thing that's coming. All these reforms, like now when you have NADCO coming, all those new things, the next thing that's going to come is via public, via committee meetings to actually look at them in details, a little more than you normally do. And then the third thing is, which is good, and I think it's going to be even more, when you are going to have serious public participation. I think there's even a bill coming on how you do public participation. And I can see a lot of movement will be required when you are doing public participation. That will fall on committees. So the way I see it, the committees, the work has increased, it's actually likely to increase at that level.
Let me just chip into that, because I closed the IGRTC, that is Intergovernmental Relations Technical Committee Symposium in Naivasha on behalf of the Speaker last week. And part of what they were discussing is exactly the laws which we at the moment debating in Parliament on statutory instruments. There is a proposed amendment on Statutory Instruments Act, which is what Honorable was talking about, and Dr. Nyikal, where for any regulation to be enacted, it must go through Parliament. Before, it used not to. What would happen is a government agency or an authorized person of a government agency, like a CEO of an institution that is mandated by law to process legislation in form of regulations, would just publish them and they become effective. What does that mean? Kenyans would be subjected into regulations which have not gone through their representation in Parliament, because what happens in Parliament through the committees and through Parliament generally is that the members of Parliament speak on behalf of their people. They have that delegated responsibility by the electorate. Now, that proposed amendment to the law will ensure that if it is the Ministry of Health, where we have legislated on the number of acts, the chief and the rest of those laws, if it is about the Ministry of Agriculture, or if it's any sector, any regulation that the CS or any authorized person is seeking to utilize to implement the law, it must go through Parliament. That was not there before. What would happen? You just propose, publish them, it becomes operational. That is what used to happen. The other bit of what could come in as also an additional engagement to the relevant committees in Parliament is on, besides the statutory instrument, is the conflict of interest and the public participation. The conflict of interest bill is also something that is new in terms of how it's supposed to apply to persons of authority. And on public participation, it will enhance engaging the public on almost a day-to-day basis on any law that is proposed. Anything that is proposed to be passed in Parliament as law must be subjected to a more rigorous public participation process, because the requirement is let the people be involved, let the people make decisions, let the people know what kind of regulation or law are you introducing to affect their livelihoods. And that is one of those things that really we as parliamentarians will be forced to go an extra mile to ensure that we involve our people. It is going to be something that hasn't happened before. It is something that will also make sure the people are aware of anything that is coming their way to affect their lives, to affect their source of livelihoods, to affect how the government is run. And that is a good thing. Therefore, it should be pushed, it should be financed, it should be supported, because that is the only way we will actually be talking about a representative government, and a government that involves the people in its plans and in its program before it is implemented, before it is taken to the people to be implemented. So it's something that if we are asked to justify, it is justifiable because we are doing it for the people of Kenya. It is not for Parliament. It is not for members of Parliament. It is for the people of Kenya.
All right.
Yeah, sure.
Olwaruku, I think we've exhausted that. Unless you wanted to say something else as we're winding up, we just look at we flip the conversation to IBC, the IBC question. As it stands, do you have anything else to say?
Just to stress a point that there's at no point where we have what you can say serious wastage of public resources in the National Assembly or in Parliament of Kenya. But the scarce resources we have, we should be able to allocate them in the most appropriate way, where Kenyans, to take care of all the sectors of our economy or the day-to-day running of Kenyans' activities in the most appropriate way. Allocation of resources, scarce resources, is an extremely cardinal responsibility. And I think the Budget Committee is trying its best to do that. Last week, the budget BPS policy statement, the budget policy statement,
yes,
was tabled in Parliament. We discussed it. So this is one of the steps of the budgeting process. It must be properly aligned now with the budget itself. So the Treasury has a key responsibility to ensure what a budget policy statement is saying is exactly what we will get in terms of the budget. Because sometimes we have a very good budget policy statement, and it is remained as a statement. What we get in the House as a budget is completely different from the budget policy statement. And who makes that happen? It's the people sitting at Treasury. So they have to ensure everything is aligned. Then also we have to align KRA. And that's what I was telling my colleagues in the opposition or in the minority, that yes, every corner, both houses are happy with the budget policy statement. This budget policy statement must be financed. It will be financed by a finance bill. When the finance bill comes to Parliament, can we also support the same? For us to be able to finance this budget policy statement, which we are saying it is well done, it is well researched, well thought. if it is well thought, it must be financed. How will it be financed? Through our taxes. So when we start coming up with finance bill to finance the budget policy statement, let the members of the minority not start now complaining, saying government is taxing Kenyans huge amount of taxes. How do you expect to budget policy statement to be financed, if not through a finance bill? So I'm expecting in a couple of months, probably 1.5 months from now, we will be in unison with the minority saying that yes.
But in this, you're always in unison. I've never seen you diverging. On this, you'll always
he's
be
looking
in
at
unison.
me, he wants some kind of assurance. Let me just tell you, we will read the finance bill and we will go into the details. And where there are hidden ways of taxing Kenyans, we will reject it. I can assure you of that one.
All right, let's start the crack now to the IBC question. And we've seen, maybe also I can pick up with you, Ruko, on this, because you are intimately familiar with the legislation that Alice Nganga is coming up with. I don't know how this runs concurrently with the IBC amendment bill. That is one of the legislation that Hilary Sigei's National Dialogue report came up with there. So we are really pinched for time, as it is. And I thought this will have been the first point of order, even when the National Assembly, returned from, where we had the resumption of the National Assembly from the recess as well. I don't know how far we are right now and what is the Nganga's bill all about. If you may just tell us what is headlining this particular bill? What is the title of that bill?
The bill to amend the Constitution by Thika Town Member of Parliament, Honorable Alice Nganga, is seeking to extend the period which the constituencies which don't meet the threshold of about 164,000 Kenyans as a population, to be able to extend to allow these constituencies to get enough population within a period of 8 years to 12 years. Because we believe that all the constituencies, the Constitution says there shall be 290 constituencies in the Republic of Kenya. So 290 constituencies in the Republic of Kenya, if you scrap 40 constituencies, we'll be talking about 250 constituencies, which is not a provision of the Constitution. Unless you scrap the 40 constituencies, then you create more. You create another 40 constituencies, which may bring a lot of issues. Because the way these constituencies the boundaries are done, there is a lot of customs, a lot of culture, a lot of traditions which are involved in the process, how people live, how the origin of these people, to be in a more cohesive, as a constituency, as a people, to be more cohesive. So if today, for instance, Bere North constituency, you say we are scrapping it, so it means some part of Bere will be in Runyanje, some other part will be in Taraka, some other part will be in Bere South, some other part will be in Manyata. It will create a lot of disunity, even where these people are going, because that's not how they have been socialized. Socialization process of a people is extremely key. That's why we are Kenyans, we are not Ugandans.
But don't you think the drafters of this constitution, they're taken cognizant of that as well? Right? They had collectively
the 290 constituencies. This is according to the census of 2019? 2019. At the moment, the population has increased. So someone can go to court and argue you are using the data of 2019. We are now in 2024. Can we go back to Bere North and get to know the exact number of Kenyans, of people living in Bere North? Not only living in Bere North, even if they are in other areas, who their home is Bere North, the census is done in such a way that even if you are, it's done and you are in Mombasa, you say where you come from, where your birthplace. So whether you are in Mombasa or Kisumu, you'll be counted as a person who comes from Better North. So we can go, and even if we don't have this amendment of the Constitution by the Member of Parliament, we can petition IBC and tell them, no, you can't use the data of 2019. Use the data of 2024
Right.
To say that this constituency does not meet the requirement. For now, I know Better North meets the requirement. I am sure we are more than 164,000 people. But having said that, we are moving with the speed to amend the constitution to allow. All of us signed this bill to
allow Better not to be disintegrated.
Yes, yes.
Because
okay. So,
yeah, but is it because this bill that she's trying to sponsor, isn't it inconsequential in light of what also the NADCO reports is coming up with? Because I think it is offering a cure, of all that you're having bugbears and fears about, you losing your constituency and being disintegrated. Maybe you can give us an understanding.
Say as much as what you have said. I haven't read Honorable Nganga's bill, but I've seen in brief what exactly it's seeking, and of course, having heard from my colleague, it is something that, as a Kenyan, as a leader, as a practitioner, I've asked myself a number of questions. Are we staring at a constitutional crisis? Because remember, Dibali, we've talked about this on this table some times back. We've read Article 89 of the Constitution.
Yes.
That tells us that we have got 290 constituencies. So at any given time, as long as we're still aware that this is the supreme law of Kenya, we have 290 constituencies. Now, 89.2 talks about the delimitation of boundaries, or rather review of boundaries. Review names and boundaries of constituencies, meaning at any given time, that review must make sure that we retain the 290 constituencies.
Number, names and boundaries of periodically.
Periodically, that is between 8 and 12 years. Where we are beyond. The timeline is actually this month, right?
No, 11 this month.
11, yes, this month, March of 2024. Now, that aside, that is the Constitution, that is the supreme law, that is the law of Kenya. We have a decision from the court, Justice Tande's decision, on the IEBC, which is the only organ that this Constitution mandates to do the review of constituencies periodically. It is not in place. IEBC is not in existence as of now. There is a decision from a judge saying, let the selection panel immediately conduct the recruitment of the commissioners of IEBC. That is crisis number 2, we haven't done. Crisis number 3 is the NADCO report. NADCO report has been placed before Parliament. National Assembly and the Senate has approved it. We have actually had the first joint sitting of the JLAC Committee of the National Assembly and the JLAC Committee of the Senate, which I chair. We had our first meeting last week. We are having our second meeting on Wednesday. We have been given from the community, from the speakers, the respective speakers of the National Assembly and the Senate, we have been given 45 days to come up with a report. Meaning, between our first sitting and the next 45 days, that NADCO report stands without any action being undertaken. And this is something that was jointly produced by all parties involved, political for this matter. And it is seen as, a representative of the voices of Kenyans, because it came up out of the protests. And when the joint membership of now the government and the opposition approved the report, it somehow sits in a central position. So those three things, the decision from the court, the NADCO report, and the Constitution, actually, it's a crisis, sort of. Because in this NADCO report, we are supposed to enact 8 legislations. Among them is the IEBC. So if the current law which the judge used to make the finding she made, and the residents of Banisa constituency are expecting to have their member of parliament elected, because they are not represented, by the way, as at now, in a number of other wards. I, from NADCO, representing equally the interest of Kenyans, have said, look, let us amend the IEBC Act because we want to enhance the membership to the IEBC Commission. So, all said and done, are we staring at a constitutional crisis? I would say, well, that is what the law says, but the law is made by man for the man.
Yeah, but even man for the man, are we all also opening an avenue now for, you know, a sort of a petition from Kenyans right now? Because as it is, you're talking about 45 days that you've been allocated by the Speaker for you to come up with a report.
But with a report,
yes. Where is the safety valve that will give you that mandate? Because when you're talking about 45 days, we're in March.
The safety valve is here.
Which will go beyond what the Constitution stipulates as far as the timelines are concerned.
The safety valve is here. One of the proposed legislation is the amendment to the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Act, which is the basis of the amendment, or rather the review of the boundaries, because without a commission, that can't happen. That is why I was saying, are we on a constitutional crisis where we are aware the law requires us to make this review, but unfortunately, we do not have a commission in place that can undertake that particular assignment. At the same time, we now have a report which is bipartisan. All players within the political divide have come together and said, look, this is where we want the commission going forward. Why? Because we would want an all-inclusive independent electoral boundaries commission that represents the interests of Kenyans across the political divide. And therefore, if there isn't anyone who would now raise a petition to challenge that bit, then that will be the sort of a safety valve that I'm talking about, because the NADCO report represents Kenyans' political divides. It
So
normally happens
you are
when...
you are the masses of Kenyans right now. If no one really raises a petition, then you're good to go.
Yes,
but if someone moved to court today, then it scampers the whole process.
It will not. It will actually become. It's gonna be a problem, yes, but it will not stop us.
You see,
from
now
doing
you are on the sharpest edge of a dilemma as it is right now.
Yeah.
Because we are just praying that no Kenyan will wake up today and say, now you failed as legislators to make sure that we have these particular boundaries. You've not met your timelines.
Unfortunately, by the way, Dibal, sorry, I'm cutting you short.
Even when we went on a recess, people were wondering, you guys are just in a recess for the longest time. We have a constitutional crisis looming. You're waiting until the end of the recess. Why can't even the national speaker call a special sitting so that we can discuss IBC as a question?
Now, let me answer you, and I'll only answer straight. We do not have a lacuna in law as we speak now on this table. The IEBC Act is still in place. The selection panel is in place.
There is no lacuna, but there is a crisis. No, in terms of timeline, we do have a crisis.
Oh, yes.
With the one addition and what is the Constitution really. We're not talking about lacuna, we're talking about the crisis as it is right now.
But that crisis has now been cushioned by the coming together of the political, formations to agree on a common ground, because they are doing this for the benefit and interest of Kenyans.
But there's no veracity on that particular NADCO report until it is fully implemented and assented to by the President.
Definitely.
Yes, so as we're talking right now, we are actually just walking, I don't know if we're walking on stilts, we can actually just fall on either way where we are. We're in a big problem.
Let me take it from a lay person.
From a lay person, okay.
We are in a crisis.
We're in a crisis.
We are in a consumer.
Yes.
That is,
we are, let's just admit.
That is the truth. And I think anybody going to court and petition can actually push us. What I don't know is what will then happen. But remember, there was also a similar crisis with the 230 gender rule, and Justice Maraga himself called it out. So there's a time that things like that happen.
So this because whatever we do now, there's a constitutional crisis.
In fact, Alice Nganga's bill is actually a very serious reaction to what crisis we are in. Because the most hit, and I think him also, are these 26 constituencies. Because somebody can go to court and say they don't exist today. How did they come into being?
Yeah.
How did they come into being? When the constitutions were being done, they came with this formula of dividing the population, as he was saying then, of 47 million and 290, and getting a figure, I think it was 164. Then they put a range. So within that range, they accepted it. But the ones that fell below that range had to go. Now the problem they had at that time is these were existing constituencies. And so how did they come out of the crisis? They didn't even come out of the crisis. They pushed it to now. So they came out of the crisis and say, these are protected constituencies until the next review. Now, the next review has come and passed. It has not been done. So somebody can easily go and say these constituencies are illegal. And I think Ali Nganga and is right to do that. And I think we should see it in that context. And in my view, I actually view it favorably, because when you have a crisis, you may take short-term measures to give yourself time to actually look at the major. Because the major issue, even the court is telling us, the court has ruled against it. They're saying no. The Constitution itself is saying 8 years are not more than 12 years. Our colleague, 1889 too. And then it goes on number 3 to say it review the number, the names. So that if we went for that review, then we will have we could even increase the number of constituencies. We could even decrease. So we would then have a situation to look at, okay, what is now the fate of the 26? Now that has not happened. Let's say, because of politics, I don't think you will just blame the National Assembly. This is politics all through. We are delayed. Now NADCO is actually in the right direction. And I don't want to bring this in, but even this was in the BBI, but it is now come. And if NADCO was to go and move quickly, even then it will not still meet the deadline of the Constitution. Indeed. It will not meet the deadline.
All right, so
I think
what does it portend?
The most critical issue to me are these 26 constitutions. And let's not say people didn't think about it. You remember during the BBI, some people, I think Jeremiah Kioni, for example, was very loud, Honorable Jeremiah Kioni, was very loud on the constituencies that we are likely to lose. That was his selling point in the Mount Kenya region. So it's something we knew. Politics is politics. The Constitution was done. Time and tide waits for no man. So the time and tide that's caught up with us here. And Alice Nganga is actually, to me, my colleagues are lawyers, it is probably the best attempt to avert, because can you imagine we are going to an election and you are saying this constituency don't exist? You know the crisis you'll bring. Do something about that. Then let's see if NADCO works fast. Let me say about NADCO. Let me say something about NADCO. Even if we move fast, I'm seeing an issue. Because although we passed it and bipartisan and there was agreement, I'm seeing some difference coming on whether we'll go for referendum or we'll not go for referendum. My friend here is in the committee. This is something you have to resolve. Yeah. Because if we disagree on that, it will be terrible. And again, the Constitution is very clear. The law just put itself and sits there. They say the law is blind, these guys. So the Constitution says, if you touch this, you touch this, you touch this, we go to a referendum. So the issue of the referendum is another one coming.
Because it touches the basic structure of the Constitution at the end of the day.
Yes.
So you were seeking to raise that figure to that particular period, 8 to 12, to be around 20 years? Was it 20 or?
That is now what
with the NADCO report,
in NADCO.
the proposal that is there, so that you can cure this.
That is in Nganga's bill. In the NADCO report, we are saying that once we amend the Constitution, not the Constitution, sorry, the bills, because IBC will be seeking to amend, one, the issue about the commissioners to the IEBC from 7 to 9. And as regards now the delimitation of boundaries, now I'm not very specific about the number of years that it's going to be enhanced.
Because I thought also that was part of the DADCO report that we enhanced it to
Nganga is
20
suggesting,
years. Aside from
another
Nganga.
16.
she's suggesting that we leave them alone and allow them to grow and meet the requirements.
Yes.
NADCO is saying from 8 to 12, go to I think 10 to 20.
2020.
Yes.
Yeah. I thought that was the case. So both
Nganga and NADCO report, they are reading from the same script.
But let's look at the implication of this if it doesn't really. Or you wanted to say something before I ask my question?
No, I was saying Nganga's bill and NADCO report, what the NADCO report is recommending, they are reading from the same script. So basically, because the NADCO report bills are going to be fast-tracked faster than members' bill. They move faster because they are forwarded by the leader of majority and the leader of minority. So we expect that to move faster and cure the problems of these constituencies, which are proposed to be scrapped.
Faster than what?
Okay.
Because when will we have
a member bill?
Yeah, even if it's a member bill, still we're looking at the hiring of commissioners. It has to go through vetting, isn't it? Yeah.
Nganga's bill does not touch commissioners.
No, I'm
The issue of
talking
commissioners
I'm talking about NADCO.
Yes, NADCO report bills will move faster in the House. Will be fast-tracked because they are government
than
bills.
Nganga's.
Yes, than Nganga's
Yes.
or my bill or even Nganga's bill. That is the tradition of the House.
But we are saying,
having said that,
no,
IBC...
but we are saying even if it goes at a supersonic speed, still the reality, it can't actually, meet the threshold as it is right now that is being required by the Constitution. Because we are beyond time as it stands.
Yes.
But what are the implications? That means if someone moves to court right now, Ruku,
Yes.
you lose
He's
your
a
seat.
lawyer.
No, even now...
If someone will say, no, how are you drawing from the exchequer because your constituent is illegal as far as the Constitution is concerned, and many others. We are talking about the 26. Yes. Will you be in the National Assembly as the legitimate national representative of people?
The thing is, Constitution is the will of the people. And not every will of the people is documented
but we're
in
just
our
looking at the
Constitution.
implications.
Yes. Now, as the parliament stands at the moment, is unconstitutional because of two things. One, we don't have the member of parliament from Madeira who passed on, and he has not been replaced up to now. So we have less members. We don't have 280 members of parliament. We have 289 members. So anybody goes to court
and say that the housing levy has been passed.
Yes.
And it is not a full representation of the House.
Yes.
That is bound also to scupper
yes.
and scuttle the entire process as it is.
Okay.
Because that is also there.
Yeah. Another thing is the
well.
Tudan, and actually there's a ruling of Supreme Court as far as the Tudan is concerned. So we should not be in Parliament if we were to be stickler of law, stickler of the Constitution. But you see, this Constitution is the will of the people, and not every will of the people is put in writing. The United Kingdom does not have a written Constitution. But
they have their Magna Carta.
Yes, they don't have a written Constitution. So it doesn't mean that we can only abide by what is written here. We can abide also by unwritten law, unwritten regulations.
But I think that will be now treading on very dangerous grounds if you say we are unwritten laws. This should be.
We borrow
the alpha and omega.
We also borrow what do you call it? Yes, from other Commonwealth jurisdiction. Countries. So it's not only what is in our Constitution which binds us. We can borrow. If there were similar crises like what we are facing, we can probably, it happened in one of the Commonwealth countries, I don't know, in one of Ireland, we can still borrow and apply it to our country. So we will not have a crisis which can stop the arms of government operating. That is the judiciary, parliament, and the executive. We will still move as a nation. But having said that, we need to take care of, we need to come up with strategies of averting such kind of situation. We don't need to find our nation now and then in a constitutional crisis that we can't be able to address properly, because we need to be predictable. A nation which can prosper, which can move in the right direction, need to be predictable. It can only be predictable if we follow our constitution and our laws properly.
Thank you.
So we need to change this culture of finding ourselves as a nation in a constitutional crisis now and then. At the moment, we are getting into one. We need to solve this. There's the issue of truth and gender. I don't think even we'll be able to solve that thing, that problem in Parliament, with even having it in adequate reports. Because we have to look at how our society is socialized. We may not say, let's now bring another 59 or so women in Parliament. Because if we pass this, if we say let's have 280, pass the truth and gender rule.
The 59 on affirmative action.
Yes. Mm-hmm. It means that the parties will be in a process of nominating another close to 50-something members of Parliament, both in the Senate and the National Assembly, to be in the House because of truth and gender rule. From where I stand, I think let's go in a gradual way. A time will be coming when Kenya will be there.
Right. Well, let me make a law.
We need to give our closing remarks. My music is up.
Okay, yeah. I'll do both. You know, the biggest thing is that we agree as this unit called Kenya, we want to live together. So I'm not a lawyer, but this gentleman will tell you that even when they're in court, whether they're judges or magistrates or what, sometimes they are guided by what their decisions will do to the larger community if they pass it, even if the letter of the law is in their favor. So I leave that
with the good of the public.
It's the good of the public.
Because so, if we say that the whole parliament now is unconstitutional,
so I think that is one.
Who will stimulate other legislation?
The two-thirds gender rule, to me, it has shown the most important thing that technical issues, we should not attempt to put them with politics, because politics will never solve it. What we are afraid of, and Honorable Ruku has said, is bringing, I think, 59 more women, assuming no woman was elected at all. Now, we are saying we don't want to do it, but we did it in the county assemblies. Honorable Ruku, 177, Article 177 for the county assemblies allows that after the elections are done, you count the numbers and you are not meeting two-thirds, you add the number. Now we are afraid of it because of the financial cost. Something has even said, if you put that financial cost, it comes to about 41 shillings per person per year that you will pay for that extra number of MPs you will bring. Now, short of that, we just go back and change the constitution and make it gradual. NADCO has brought two proportions. The other proportion is going to be very critical, which that every 47 county will bring two women representatives. That is the other one.
Thank you. Dr. Yikal, we need to wind up. Right, we need to wind up. Yes.
Winding up. Our politics should really be guided by reason and reality.
Thank you.
Regardless of our parties.
Thank you. Let's hear from Senator.
So, as I close, we are not in a constitutional crisis.
We are not.
And we are
We are.
going to...
We are in a constitutional crisis.
No, I've said we are not, and I mean it. Because, as I said, law is made for the man, by the man. And remember, Dibal, we all don't live in mass, like the judges. Remember, there's a judge who said the other day, I don't live in mass. in the night, I land in the morning to
No,
Kenya.
but
So,
as it stands with
as
the
it
Constitution
stands
right now, leaving alone that...
Nadico report and the goodwill of the political divide will give us a solution to resolve this problem, because as we say, whatever else we are doing for the interest, for the benefit of Kenyans.
Thank
so
you.
the public interest aspect will carry the day, and we expect that Kenyans of goodwill will always come forward to support any proposal by parliament or opposition or anybody that supports the interest of Kenyans as a nation.
Right. Thank you. Honorable Ruko, your closing remarks.
Coming up with restructuring IBC is key. But even if we restructure IBC and we fail to have a serious amendment on Election Act, we will still be complaining of the challenges which we have been facing in the previous general elections. I have come up with an amendment of Election Act which proposes to have a different definition of ballot paper and also a different definition of integrated electoral system. And ballot paper, I wanted to be defined as a printed, machine-read, optically scanned ballot, which is designed and prepared to be ad-marked or machine-marked by the voter to record or indicate his or her choice in an election or referendum, and discussed by means of inserting in an optical scanning and tabulating machine to be automatically examined, scanned, counted, tabulated, and secured by an electronic scanning process.
Sounds like we're going purely digital.
If we pass that,
artificial intelligence.
If we pass that,
thank you.
The issues of
I was as a business person to buy that machine.